Hi and welcome to Durand's Designs. I'm Brian Durand. In today's video I'm going to continue my series on the Vectric tool menus. This is part 3 of a multi-part series. In this video we'll start with the Create Arc tool and we'll work our way down to the text tools. If you haven't seen part 1 and 2 of this series, I'll have a link up on the top of the video where you can check those out. So let's get started now. Okay, so let's get started. We'll open up a new document. We'll make it 12 by 12 by 2. So the last video I left off on the Draw Line tool. So this video we'll get started with the Draw Arc tool. So if you click on the Draw Arc icon, we'll start out with the through 3 points. So you start at 1 point, you do your end point, and then you pick the curve. And wherever you stop and click, that's where you're going to end up with the radius of the curve. So this is useful if you're trying to trace around an image and create vectors around an image. You can get your curve exactly the way you want it with your third click. So another way you can do this is choosing your start point on the document. So you'd highlight on the document where you want to start it. It'll tell you the coordinates of your X and Y, and you can just type them in. So we'll say 6 by 6, which would be the center of the document, would be the start. And then you can pick the end point. You just choose where you want to go. So you can find your coordinates for your end point by just hovering over the document, finding the coordinates, and then typing them in. In this case it'd be 9 by 6, and that will give you the start and the end, and obviously you set your radius down below. So if you change your radius to 3, it'll make the arc smaller. And you can just play around with that, setting different heights and different radiuses. And then lastly, you have the center, start, and end point. So it's just a different way of creating your arc. In this case, you start in the middle, and it creates the arc that way. So wherever you want to click start, that's going to be the middle of your arc. And I'll just show you a few different examples of how that could work. So we'll just clear that out by selecting it all and hitting delete. And we'll move on to our next tool, would be the Draw Curve. Now this one can be handy if you want to trace around an image, or you just want to have a curvy line. As you click the mouse, it'll automatically give you an S curve for the line instead of a straight line. And if you keep going around, it'll just keep giving you curves. Then you can go in and edit that line by selecting it. Gotta go down to your selection tool. Now you hit N on your keyboard and you can adjust the curves the way you want using the handlebars. It'll give you all different kinds of shapes and control over those lines. So let's delete that and we'll move on to the vector texture creation tool. I won't go into too much detail for this. This is more of a video on its own, but I'll just show you basically what it does. It just creates a pattern for you of vectors. You can change the angle, spacing, parameter, wavelength, the noise, and you can just see if you change each one, you're changing the shape. And you can check the place vectors on a layer, and you can name that layer to place them on their own separate layer. And you can see they're on their own layer. And now we'll move on to the text creation tools. So we have the basic draw text, and you can just type in the box there. We'll just type in a sample. And you can pick your font style. You got your single line and your true type. And it'll have a different set of fonts available for each one. And obviously you have your bold and italic, your left, right, and center alignment, and your text height. These are all pretty straightforward for anyone who's used any text editing software. So we just move this text out of the way. We can start a new text by unclicking. And if you click on a point of the document, you can use that as your starting point. So you can see it starts from the point that you clicked. That's the anchor on the bottom left. So you click somewhere else. You can also set that anchor point manually by changing your X and Y settings down at the bottom. If you hit 1 and 1, it's going to go right down in the bottom corner. So we can just select all that and delete it. And we'll move on to the next button, which is auto layout text. Now in this case, if you don't create a boundary, you're just going to stay within the boundary of the document. So it'll only go as wide as the document when you type something in. But another way we can do this is we create a bounding box. So we'll create a square or a rectangle using our draw rectangle tool. So say you just want words on the side of your document and you want to keep it in a certain spot of your document, and you would draw that box, and then your text will stay inside that box. This method can be very useful if you're wanting your text to go in a very specific spot. You can make that box any size you want. Say you want it around the outside of a Carve or just on one side or the other. This is a great way to keep that text confined to a small area. You can also go to a larger edit if you want to see more clearly what you're typing. And you can choose the size of the bounding box by selecting the width and the height. And you can see the dotted line has changed. Now you can also set the margin size. So if you want a bit of a margin on your box to give it some spacing, you can set it to none, normal, or wide. And you can also stretch out your vertical and horizontal of each word. Okay, so we'll close that out and we'll delete everything there. And we will move on to the next one, which is the spacing. So first we'll just create a new text and center it on the document. We can do this by using the normal text tool and then alignment tool to center it on the document. Now you can see if we click on that with the spacing tool, if you hit the shift, hold down the shift and then click in between the letters, you can space them out more. And if you just click it without the shift, you're going to narrow the space. Okay, so now we're going to go to convert to curves. So if you have a object highlighted and you click convert to curves, you can also do that with your right mouse. Now you can see each individual line or letter is its own item. Now if you were to undo that by hitting Control Z, you would see that it's all one piece and you can't move it individually. You have to move it as a whole. But by converting it to curves, like I said, each line is now movable. So you can move it around. And say you want to have your letters all individual, that you can create a vertical word or just place them wherever you want on your document. That's possible now. Okay, so now we will move on. Just highlight all those letters and we will hit delete and we'll create a new text. Just a basic text. And we'll align it to the center of the document. And we will do the text on a curve icon. So first we need to create a curve that we can follow. You can use a circle. Make sure the circle's highlighted. Click on the word and it will align to the curve. Now you got lots of options once you do this. You can maintain the text size or you can scale it to fill the curve. And you can adjust the amount of the scale by adjusting the slider. You can also move it around. You can adjust the text spacing by using the slider. And you can go on the curve, above the curve, or below the curve. Then if you adjust the scaling, you can adjust the way it looks. You can also click on text on the other side if you want it to be on the other side of the line. This is useful if you spin it around. In order to do that, you have to have both the text and the circle selected. If you just select the text, that'll move the text along. If you select everything, then you can use the rotation tool to rotate it down to the bottom or anywhere you want it. And then obviously you can change the way that looks, unchecked the text on the other side, and you can flip that around to be on the bottom of the curve. And you have your text alignment. Keep vertical or aligned to curve. And you got your offset distance. If you change that, it'll change the distance from the line. Setting it back to 0. So there's lots of different options. This is a useful tool if you want to create a logo. Have your image carved in the middle, and then have your words going around the circle. Can be fairly useful. So I think this is a good spot to stop this tutorial. In the next tutorial on the Vectric menus, I'm going to pretty much dedicate the whole thing to the bitmap tracing, as I think that deserves its own video. And if you want to watch part 1 and 2 of this Vectric menu tutorial, you can look at the playlist up in the top text. So I hope you liked this video. If you did, please hit like down below and subscribe, as I'll have new videos every week. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.